Here we go. It is time for the semi-finals at the US Open. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog. Presuming that if you're here, you're already subscribed, but if you're not, you know where the little button is that you press, so do that now. Here we are then, semi-finals time. I'm figuring a lot of you will have watched the quarterfinals preview and predictions video, and I was pretty pleased about how that one went. I was quite public with saying that quarterfinals is my least favorite round to predict, but we got 7 out of 8 correct winners, and then the one that we got wrong, Shapovalov, who I took over Carreno Busta, actually won more games, and it was a 5-setter, so close enough, and it's got me feeling a little bit more settled, rightly or wrongly, coming into the semis. And I've had a little think about all the matches, and I'm pretty sure of where I'm going with each one, so I'll try not to take up too much of your time. We'll try and keep it to a similar length of time for each match as in the last video, maybe 10 minutes tops on each. And we'll take it with the women's matches first. They're being played tonight, if you're in my part of the world, Great Britain. And the men's matches are being played tomorrow, so we'll kick off with the 2 women's matches, follow up with the men's matches, and when this is finished and it's getting processed, which is taking a while, and it's up on the channel, I'll put a timestamp in the description so that you can get to the men's matches quite easily if you so wish. So let's get going. Let's kick off with former champion, 2018 champion Naomi Osaka, the number 4 seed here, up against number 28 seed Jennifer Brady, winner of the WTA event in Lexington the first week back. So Osaka made the final in Cincinnati and had to withdraw. So these two are players that had really good form going ahead of this event and have brought it into the US Open. So good for them that they can back it up, because as I've said before, a lot of the players that perform well ahead of a Grand Slam don't really tend to take that form deep into the major. So big stuff from both of them, and they deserve a lot of credit in that regard. We're going to run through their paths to the semi-final, but I did go through all the players' paths in the quarterfinals preview and prediction video, so today I'm going to focus more kind of analytically on the quarterfinal matches that each have come through. Let's start with Brady, just because she's the lower ranked player. So she hadn't dropped a set moving into the quarterfinals. She had wins over Anna Blinkova, Cici Bellis, 2-seeded players in Caroline Garcia and Angelique Kerber, and she continued the theme against Yulia Putintseva. I think I called 3 sets for this one just because I know what a gritty presence Putintseva is, and the way she's able to get in her opponent's heads, and I gave her the benefit of the doubt on that. But Brady was in control of that one from the offset. She won it 6-3, 6-2. Same kind of striking that we've been seeing from her, getting on top of the ball, rallying with really good consistency. The one thing for her there, which I'll touch on a little bit later on, is the only 2 break points that she faced, she was broken in those moments, and she's going to need a little bit more big moment consistency against someone like Naomi Osaka, who has dropped a couple of sets actually, but looked really impressive recently at the US. In the first round, she dropped a set against Misaki Doi, but smooth sailing over Camila Giorgi in round 2. Marta Kostyuk gave her a little bit of trouble in the 3rd round. It was a bit of a messy match at times from Osaka, but she has that big moment mentality of knowing when to peak, which is so important. Seized her opportunity beginning of the 3rd set when Kostyuk had a little wobble, and clamped down from there on in to get that one in 3. Annette Kontaveit she beat in straight sets in the 4th round, which took her into her quarter-final match with Shelby Rogers, which I feel like quite a few people thought that one might be close. Rogers has had a brilliant comeback story after struggling with injuries. She came back last year and she's had some great results since then. Was playing really well in New York, hitting pretty heavy, and against Osaka she was being very proactive, looking for the winners early on, because obviously Osaka has a pretty lethal hit on her when she's got the ball on her terms, and Rogers was trying to take that away from her, trying to get the first punch in before Osaka could. But Osaka cottoned onto that quite quickly, and she's just looking so comfortable and so at ease with the conditions that she was able to adjust pretty quickly and try and pull it away from Rogers. And when she got her teeth into it, Rogers did start to lose her consistency a little bit and all round kind of feel the pressure a little bit more. So it was a 6-3, 6-4 victory for Osaka. There were tight moments in there, particularly when Osaka got broken back in the second set, but crucially, she just got straight back to the business of striking deep, finishing points quickly, and all in all, just getting back to what was working for her. So, really great signs mentally for Osaka in that match. And personally, I think it's a really good matchup for her to prepare her for Jennifer Brady. I see similarities in the way that Rogers and Brady strike the ball. And if anything, Rogers was looking to be more proactive than Brady. Brady's a little bit more content to work in the rallies and try and set up her finishing position a little bit more. Rogers was going for the winner early. So if Brady isn't so proactive, Osaka will probably be able to get on top of those rallies quite quickly, and then she's in a bit of trouble. But before we do more analysis on that, let's take a glance at the head-to-head. It's 1-1 actually, but can't take too much away from the first meeting, which went the way of Brady, because that was way back in 2014. Osaka, pretty young at the time, and it was at ITF level, so there's been a lot of progression for both, really, since then. Both meetings so far have been straight sets, and both have been 6-4, 6-4 scorelines, so it was straight sets there for Brady on a hard court. But in 2018, Charleston, the green clay of Charleston, very unique, that was the last time that they met, and Osaka came out on top 6-4, 6-4. I think that Brady is quite challenging across clay courts and hard courts, to be fair. She's got a game style that transitions well between the two. And I just think, based on their form here, I've said it in previous videos, Osaka has been a front runner for me, if not the front runner, from the get-go of this tournament. I think as rounds have gone by, she's shown her ability to peak for the right moments, as I've said. I feel like a stuck record sometimes, but this is what differentiates the top players, their ability to identify where they need to come through good and absolutely deliver. And it's something that Osaka has done. I am a little bit concerned for Brady that she did crack those 2 times that she was actually put under pressure by Putintseva. I think the one way that Brady could trouble Osaka is using the variety. She's pretty well trained with the drop shot herself. She throws that one in a little bit. I think she gave Angelique Kerber some trouble with that when they faced off in the 4th round. And that's the kind of thing that's going to trouble Osaka, stuff that pulls her out of position and stuff that makes her move. Putintseva is the player that Brady just beat to make this stage, and it was Putintseva that gave Osaka trouble at Wimbledon, another fast court where she was drop shotting her, where she was slicing, where she wasn't giving Osaka a rhythm. You give Osaka a rhythm and that's it. I think Rogers was probably a little bit guilty of giving her too many looks at the same kind of ball, and Brady needs to be careful not to fall into that trap. She needs to use the drop shot and she needs to mix it up. And if she can do that, then she can do something here. But I think Osaka's going to be pretty proactive and force her to play in the way that she wants her to. So I'm going to say Naomi Osaka to come through this one. And I think, given her form so far and the way that she's easing into things at the back end of this major, I think I would take Naomi Osaka in straight sets for this match. So that one's nicely wrapped up, and we move on to what is, in my opinion, a little bit of a tougher call in a throwback Thursday clash between Serena Williams and Victoria Azarenka. No, it's not 2012, but it does feel like it. Serena seeded number 3 and Victoria Azarenka unseeded because prior to lockdown, she'd been struggling for years. We've spoken about it. She had off-court issues to deal with, and that really displayed itself in the moments that she could actually get to the court. She was in custody battles and was required to stay in certain parts of the world at times, which actually prevented her from competing. So it's been a rotten time for Azarenka, and she's suddenly just looking really relaxed again and happy. And the amount of times I've seen her smiling during matches, that's such a great thing for her, and so positive coming into a matchup like this, which has been a little bit of trouble for her over the years. I think that relaxed mindset could see her places in this one. And Serena is Serena. She's been fighting like the days of old at the back end of this US Open so far. Who should we start with? Let's go with Azarenka. Let's start with all the lower ranked as we go through the runs to date. I've made no secret that I've been really impressed with Victoria so far. She didn't drop a set in her opening 3 matches against Barbara Haas, Arina Sabalenka, her countrywoman and the number 5 seed, and Iga Swiatek, who came out absolutely firing. And Azarenka was just able to hold firm, take a deep breath, work her way through that one. And I feel like that's been the story, really, of her last 3 matches. So she had a tough one in the 4th round against Karolina Muchova, the number 20 seed. Muchova came out really flowing and giving her a look at lots of different kind of balls. So Azarenka was getting pulled about a bit at the beginning of that one, really had to adjust to come through in 3 sets. And a similar story against Elise Mertens. Now, that 6-1, 6-love scoreline says it was a thrashing. And to be fair, for the second set, Azarenka was absolutely rolling. But the early handful of games for Azarenka, it really looks like that she was in it for the long haul. Mertens, we know what she can do with her firepower. She was looking really comfortable in New York. She came out swinging, hitting her marks off the sidelines, opening up the court, putting Azarenka on the run. And even as Azarenka, I think, got the early break for 2-love, Mertens was straight back in it, breaking back. They were close games, deuce games, and it really felt like we were going to be there for a couple of hours for that match. And then Azarenka just pulled away. She started finishing things off more quickly. That put the pressure on for Mertens to mix things up a little bit more than I think she wanted to. She was looking for different options to finish the point off, wasn't necessarily comfortable moving in. And as the match wore on, once Azarenka had got the lead on the scoreboard in that first set, she really just loosened up, looked comfortable. It was another case of problem solving, working her way through. Once she reached the second set, she was flowing off forehand and backhand. I mean, the backhand down the line was the money shot for Azarenka yesterday, as it always has been, but everywhere on the court, she was really a problem to deal with. She's made a point of jumping on returns, second serve returns throughout this tournament. She was nailing her marks there, adding pressure on Mertens to go for more on her serve. She was brilliantly scrambling at the back of the court, and you could tell just by the way she was playing that she felt like she had nothing to lose. So she was really relaxed at the changeovers. She was reaching for every ball. She was anticipating really well, and that's something that was key against Mertens and will be key against Serena. 2 players that can generate a lot of flat power. You have to be on your toes, and sometimes you have to be willing to make a guess just so that you're in position, and Azarenka did that. So really, really good quarterfinal win for her, and I've been impressed by her last 3 victories, all of which I've watched in depth. So Azarenka, for me, has been really convincing, and that makes this particular match even more interesting than it would already be. So we move on to Serena Williams, who didn't drop a set until the 3rd round, and since then it's been a little bit of a struggle. So Christy Ahn and Margarita Gasparian were her first 2 victims, and then Sloane Stephens in the 3rd round. I said this is the one for me that made me think Serena could win this tournament, because coming into it, she hadn't been convincing in the so-called Cincinnati. She was looking a little bit just not quite herself. And yeah, it does take a little bit of time to get going again after lockdown, but this major came up pretty quickly. And the US Open used to be the one, or one of the ones, that Serena owned, and it's been a little bit problematic for her, particularly the last couple of years. So it wasn't looking great, to be honest, until she played Stephens. And after she went down a set, she really looked in trouble. But the way she handled that, with Stephens playing well, just taking a deep breath and getting into a good headspace, getting her wheels on and playing her own game, that was quite a convincing victory for me. As I said, I had a little bit more concern when she played Sakari and should have won that in straights, but let the frustration get to her a little bit. But once again, she did see herself through, and she did the same thing against Svetlana Pironkova, who gave her a few runarounds back in the day as well. Pironkova story, fantastic, you know, first match back in not first match first tournament back in 3 years after giving birth, and she showed that she has in no way forgotten how to play. Pironkova's a really difficult matchup for these big hitters. She'd taken out Muguruza and Vekic in straight sets. The reason being, she's not really a big hitter herself, but she has these really unorthodox, unique ground strokes. She'll play the forehand slice a lot, but even when she's hitting cleanly, there's a lot of spin on her balls. They kind of drift in a way. And they're the kind of ball that a big hitter like Serena feels like she should be able to get on top of and drill winners off. And yet she's not getting much rhythm or timing off of those, and therefore she's just frustrating herself because she's going for the big shots and not finding the court. Pironkova as well was able to display such consistency in that first set. So she took that 1-6-4, and Serena did look up against it, but she's just fantastic, Serena, at the moment, in terms of knowing when it's time to bring the best. And midway through the second set, she was able to pinpoint the moments, very much like Osaka, where she was supposed to rise and break through. Seventh game of the second set was crucial for Serena, and I think she knew it. She was able to rise under pressure and did come through 4-6, 6-3, 6-2. Good win for her to be able to grind through that one. I've heard some concerns about how she'll hold up physically. I was thinking a little bit about this myself, but to my memory, I can't ever remember watching Serena lose a match where it looked like she lost due to fatigue. A lot of the time, you do try and beat Serena by running her around, but that's not the same thing as her being fatigued, feeling the effects of so many matches. That's just her being unbalanced and not being able to play the ball she wants to. As far as just kind of being tired coming into the match goes, I don't think I've ever seen Serena lose a match like that. Once they get into the competition, the adrenaline just flows for Serena, and she rides that very much. And therefore, yeah, she has had three setters in a row, but I don't think that will cost her against Azarenka, even though Azarenka is a woman who can make her play a lot of balls. So the head-to-head of this one goes back some way, and Serena has the healthy advantage with 18 wins to Azarenka's 4. I don't think that accurately represents how good of a rivalry this one has been at times. When Serena was at her peak, it was actually Azarenka that could go toe-to-toe with her at times, and Azarenka, outside of Venus, who obviously has been a big opponent for Serena from literally the first day of her career, her young career, Azarenka was the problem. And that was because she did back herself against Serena, and she backed her game against Serena, and she really took it to her. And there were times when Serena really looked like she was feeling the ball well and enjoying the pace that Azarenka was giving her, and other times where Azarenka was just able to pull her around. What's problematic for Azarenka with this head-to-head is that she's actually never beaten Serena at a slam, as if I've got that correct. I believe it is. I did write this down. 10-love to Serena when they faced off at Grand Slams, 18-4 to her overall, and those 10 wins at slams include 3 at the US Open. Now, 2 of those did go to 3 sets. Their 2 most recent clashes in, I think, 2012 and potentially 2013. I think they were the 2 finals that they played. 2012 loss was crushing for Azarenka. Obviously, that was one of Serena's really peak years. 2012 and 2013, 2 of the best seasons that she's played. And Azarenka did serve for the championship at 5-2, or she was 5-2 up in the set. I don't know if I think she served for it maybe at 5-3. Wasn't able to get across the line, and Serena did win that set 7-5. But this is... Azarenka hates it when people talk about the old Azarenka, but we're definitely seeing Azarenka in her prime right now. The way that she's relaxed, we're seeing the Azarenka that did used to play those 2012, 2013 matches against Serena. With Serena, it's more difficult to say, because I don't think, as well as she has been moving in order to get through matches, I don't think that she's quite the mover that she was. And obviously, back end of slams, the mentality has been a huge detrimental factor. And it feels, to this day, it feels quite strange to be saying that, because she used to be a mental machine back end of majors. Her record in Grand Slam finals was stunning. Obviously, that's gone out the window with the 4 major finals that she's lost since coming back after giving birth. But at the same time, her semi-final record at Grand Slams is still pretty decent. If you think about, how she's done since coming back as well. It's incredible that she's been able to make as many slam finals as she has, and a percentage of the blame has been on herself for all of those losses, as well as her opponents have played. So this one's an interesting one. It's a tricky one, because honestly, Azarenka's impressed me more of these 2. I think that she's really shown that she is back to form, that Cincy, as we call it, wasn't a flash in the pan, and that she's really backing herself. Going in to face Serena, she's not intimidated because she's found her groove again, because she knows she's beaten Serena in the past, and these two are friends as well, so maybe that does take some of the edge off of it. For Serena, that might be a good thing because she rarely loses to her friends. I'm not sure how that one works, but she makes sure to take it to them. Not that she does have many close friends on the tour, but in times past, Caroline Wozniacki, Victoria Azarenka, she hasn't gone easy. So this one will be incredibly interesting. I think that the Serena win over Pironkova shows how important it is not just to look at the stat sheet, because it said very clean match for Serena, X number of winners to unforced errors, but it didn't accurately represent how close it had been and how much danger she was really in during that one. The big saver for Serena was her serve. The serve that has served her so well, no pun intended, served her so well over the years. 20 aces she hit. Now that is a 2012 stat for you. That's the kind of numbers that Serena was racking up at Grand Slams back in the day. And if she can bring that into her match with Azarenka, that will be key, because Azarenka's been getting on top of second serve returns and getting herself into the rallies that way. But when Serena's serve is on, there's very little you can do about it. So it is a tricky one, and in a way it's 50-50, but at this stage, looking at the head-to-head, I just feel like this might be more of a comfortable matchup for Serena. She's had a couple of big hitting matches against Stevens and Sakari, which might prepare her well for this. I cannot understate how well Azarenka was playing against Mertens. Her forehand and backhand drive were brilliant. She was confident from all areas of the court. She was nailing her lines, nailing her marks. But just in the way that Serena used to play these girls, I mean, Maria Sharapova hit a good hard ball, but Serena wipes the floor with her routinely, continually. And while it's not been with the same regularity with Azarenka, there have been occasions where she's just knocked her off the court. I'm thinking of the 2012 Olympics, when she did just destroy both Azarenka and Sharapova on a fast court. And the pace here at the US Open is a step up, and Serena could utilize that. So as much as this is a tough one to call, I have spent a little bit longer on this match. I would take Serena based on the head-to-heads, and I would have more concern for her, I think, in a final against Naomi Osaka. So I think head-to-head considered, I think I have to take that into consideration. And based on the history between these two and the way that Serena's found a way to work through, might be a bit of a risk, but I would take Serena here, and I'm going to say in 3 sets just because of the battles that these two have had in the past. So Serena in 3 for me. So that's the women's matches finished. So this is the point, if you're coming at a later date, where we would be moving on to the men's semi-finals. The US Open does the smart thing, CC Australian Open, and they play the women's semis on the same day and the men's semis on the same day, which is how it should be done. It's just a lot easier for everyone involved. We start with Alexander Zverev, the number 5 seed, up against the number 20 seed and former semi-finalist Pablo Carreño Busta. Obviously, most high profile at this event because he came through when Novak Djokovic was defaulted in the 4th round, midway through, well, at the back end of the first set, after Carreño Busta had saved triple set point on his serve. So who knows where we might be now if that hadn't happened, but it's always the case. Let's kick off with Carreño Busta, who did just get a great win over Shapovalov, however you want to say it. 5 sets in round 1, but 2 straight sets victories after that, ahead of his clash with Djokovic. Now, that Djokovic match was the first time that he'd faced a seed, which was why I had a little bit of skepticism coming into his match with Shapovalov. If you watched my last preview and predictions video, you'll know that that was the match I really struggled with. And my instincts going into that was saying Carreno Busta based on experience, but the form that Shapovalov's been in, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think it was worth it, because you can see there Shapovalov picked up a 4th set bagel over Carreno Busta. When he was getting into the net and finding his range, he was kind of owning proceedings at times, but Carreno Busta's utter solid consistency is what saw him through, and he wasn't flustered with Shapovalov making those moves forward. I think he was ready for it. He kept a nice distance at the baseline just so that he had the time to line up for some stellar passing shots. And, it is all about taking those key points. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Shapovalov can roll through a fourth set to love, but that's no good for him if he can't win the key points to win the match. So, and that's what Carreño Busta did. This is the reason why he lost more games and still won the match, because he knew when he had to be rock solid. And he was during the second set tiebreak. Shapovalov had played a really good set, probably felt like he was an inch away from taking a demanding and domineering 2-sets-to-love lead, which I think would have changed the entire outcome of that match. But I think one unforced error in the tiebreak really cost him, and Carreno Busta leveled up, put the score pressure on a couple of tiebreaks, and came through that one 3-6, 7-6, 7-6, love 6, 6-3. So respect to Carreño Busta. There's been a little bit of trash talking of Carreño Busta over the last week or so. I think that he gets completely disrespected for what he's achieved. 2 semi-finals now at Grand Slams on a hard court. This guy isn't just a clay courter. I think he's had some of his best results on hard courts. No, he's not the flashiest player. No, he's not the most impressive player to watch, but his sheer consistency has been really testing the best big hitters. So Alexander Zverev had better watch out, because he did not produce his best tennis up against Borna Coric in the quarterfinals. Quickly running through Zverev's path to date, had a killer first round against Kevin Anderson, former finalist here. Killer round for Anderson as well, but that's what happens when you've dropped outside of the seedings. Zverev got that one in 4. I think that was a little bit of a boost for him, fast pace here. Anderson with a big serve, able to close in. So these are conditions that suit him, and Zverev so often taken to 5 sets in those openers. So great stuff for him that he could come through the way he did, 7-6, 5-7, 6-3, 7-5. Was 4 sets again in the second and third rounds, that third round against Adrian Mannarino, but then soared through round 4 against Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, 6-2, 6-2, 6-1, which would have given him some confidence going into face Borna Coric. Now, everyone expected that one to be a good clash. I don't think either of them reached their peak form. I will say that of all the quarterfinal matches, due to other commitments I had, this is the match I saw the least of. And actually, the Carreno Busta match, I managed the first few sets before I was absolutely dead and had to go get some sleep. So I caught up on the stats and stuff on that one. So these two did not watch the match completely thoroughly, but from what I saw, Zverev once again able to pinpoint when he needed to rise to come through, because he got thrashed in the opening set, was down in the second, and was able to up the ante to, I did watch that second set tiebreak, just win the points that he needed to and find his range to come through. So it was 1-6, 7-6, 7-6, 6-3 for Zverev. And, even though he didn't bring his best, even though the double faults was still a pain in the neck for him, he managed to come through in 4. He reaches the semis here and hasn't played a 5-set match. So fair play to Zverev, knowing his tendencies towards 5 sets. I think he's done pretty well here. And I think as well that Coric is probably a good matchup ahead of Carreno Busta. Coric is a guy that can put a lot of balls back in play, that has a steady rallying pace, and probably is able to finish a little bit better on the front foot than Carreno Busta. It depends on Carreno Busta's form. I think the Spaniard's been really impressive here in New York, and that makes this one a little bit difficult, because if you'd have asked me a few days ago, I would have said, can't see Pablo Carreño Busta in a Grand Slam final, let alone winning the thing. And now I would change my mind. I can actually see him winning this match and coming through. But I do think it's on the Zverev racket, particularly when you look at Carreño Busta's match against Shapovalov. Shapovalov, another big clean hitter. And when he was closing the net and when he was finishing the points more quickly in the first set, and indeed in the fourth set, there wasn't much that Carreño Busta could do to slow him down or shut him down. So I think this one's on Zverev's racket, and it is a case of whether he can bring the quality. To be fair, Shapovalov had almost as many double faults as Zverev, and he did almost get across the line against Carreno Busta. It's all about the timing. You can have X number of unforced errors or X number of double faults, but where are they coming? where are they appearing? If they come in clumps, if they come at key stages, then they're an issue. But no one plays a perfect match. Everyone's going to have these errors and these little sticky situations during matches. And what Zverev has done so far is worked out where he needs to put them to the side and where he needs to find that backhand, because the backhand is the big shot for him off the ground. And when he's nailing that, he's in a good position. So I think he's had his timing on point. And before I say anything else, just a quick observation of the head-to-head. It's very brief, and it is 1-love in the favor of Zverev. That match came on hard courts in America. So the semifinals of the Miami Masters in 2018, it was straight sets for Zverev, 7-6, 6-2. What else would I say here? I think, you know, what I've already said, it's on the racket of Zverev. And another thing as well is that I think Zverev, as young as he is, you know, he's achieved so much in the early days. 4 Masters 1000 titles, ATP Finals titles. He's got a lot of these titles, beating big names along the way, the likes of Djokovic and the likes of Federer. There's a reason why he's one of the most promising young players out there. Another of those reasons is the timing. And as much as I think Dominic Thiem and Daniil Medvedev have been the most impressive players at this tournament, it would be ever so typically Zverev to peak for a couple of matches and snatch this Grand Slam. And I think that he probably got the rust and the errors out of his system in a good moment against Borna Coric. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here, I think, because this match is on Zverev's racket. Yeah, I'm going to take Zverev for this one. I'm going to take Alexander Zverev. I was unsure with how many sets, because there's been a lot of momentum building for some of the men. We saw it with Thiem and Medvedev. They were pushed close early on, but once they got the first set, or once they got the first two, they rolled home. And I do think that might be the case for Zverev. So I'm tempted to go Zverev in straights. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to Carreño Busta, though, and the quality that he's brought, because I don't want to look like I'm writing him off completely. And my whole prediction here is based on the faith that Zverev will bring a better level than he did against Coric. So it would be quite risky to say Zverev in straights, because that's presuming that he does bring something close to his 100%. I think that I'll go... I do have to back myself here, don't I? No. He might not win the first set, though. Zverev in 4. Alexander Zverev in 4 sets. And if he wins in straights, well, I'll know what I should have done. But who knows? We may see Carreno Busta in a Grand Slam final, which I think would make things really interesting. He's brought a great level to New York City. Let's finish off then with the big match. Dominic Thiem versus Daniil Medvedev. The number 2 seed against the number 3 seed. 2 guys that are really in form and frankly have just been a pleasure to watch at the US Open. Really great intensity from both of them. I feel like a lot of eyes and a lot of spotlight was on them once Djokovic had fallen by the wayside, and both have risen under that pressure, absolutely no doubt. And, you know, a lot of people are talking about the asterisks around this slam, etc. But all 4 of the guys left in have brought a terrific level that could have trebled any of the big 3. And they're really going to take it to each other, I think. And whoever wins this title will have well and truly earned it, from my perspective. So let's kick off with Daniil Medvedev. Absolute beast right now. Yet to drop a set. Rolled through the first few rounds against Federico. Well, you know, he's rolled through everything up until the quarterfinals. Federico Del Boni, Chris O'Connell, JJ Wolf, who was in the form of his life coming into this tournament, and Francis Tiafoe. He just sailed. And against Tiafoe, it was particularly brutal. 6-4, 6-1, 6-love. Moments in that first set where it looked like it could get sticky, it could get tough. Medvedev peaked and rolled from there, just hit all his marks. And he's got such a fluid strike on the ball, forehand and backhand alike. A great mixture of flatness and consistency that can be really damaging. And that's what Andrei Rublev found out. I was a little bit concerned ahead of that quarterfinal because I'd forgotten how well those two knew each other. And I predicted Medvedev to come through in straights based on the facts, kind of how it played out. I thought that he would probably edge a tight opener and then take the momentum from there. But he was very close to losing that opening set. Rublev was 5-2 up in the tiebreak. He was doing all the right things. He was closing in where possible, but the most important thing that he did was rally consistently with Medvedev. Medvedev is not a guy that misses many balls. He gets the depth and he gets the cleanness on his shot whilst maintaining balance. A lot of that is to do, I think, with his positioning on the return. Alike to Thiem is quite far back, so that allows him time to get his racket on the return, get a deep return in play and work his way into the rally. And then just kind of the distance behind the baseline when he's rallying, he knows when to keep that little bit of distance and when to come forward and get on top of the baseline. He's got a really good feel for that, which really helps his balance and his movement at the back of the court, because he is one of the taller guys. I think he's 6'6", and that's very much evident. And movement is always going to be a little bit tougher for those guys, but Medvedev has it well under control. Rublev felt that pressure, I think. He suddenly saw how close he was to getting the advantage at 5-2 in the tiebreak and double faulted. And Medvedev does not need to be asked twice. He took advantage of some tightness there and closed with an ace. And Rublev did get pretty frustrated, understandably, in that moment. But it did. I'm going to take a drink just because I feel my voice going because I talk too much. But he did still make it close. I think you've got to give Rublev some credit for hanging in there when he was 2-0 down against a guy that's looked rock solid throughout the tournament and at times pretty lethal. Kept that set where he could have fallen away, as the likes of Tiafoe did, pretty close, took it to a tiebreak. And that was interesting because Medvedev started to cramp and feel pain in his shoulder at the back end of that third set. And you could tell it in his game style as well, because instead of the rallying consistency that we'd seen from him, he was trying to finish off the points more quickly. He was standing in for the returns. He was going for return winners. He gave Rublev actually quite a few cheap points in Rublev's last couple of service games, which helped get him to the tiebreak. And the pressure was really on for Medvedev in that tiebreak, because you could see that he was pushing along, knowing that the finish line was really close. And if he hadn't crossed that finish line and was looking at potentially another full set, another 2 full sets to go, that could really have troubled him physically and mentally. So the way that he was able to get it together, find the big serves through the pain, and deliver to get that win in straight sets, I think was really big from him. Understandably, I think that would raise 1 or 2 question marks that wouldn't previously have been there for his semi-final upcoming with Thiem. But I'll touch on that a little bit more in a moment. So Thiem, the number 2 seed, deeply impressive as ever, has dropped the 1 set, which is understandable. It was against Marin Cilic 2014 and the third round. That was a 6-2, 6-2, 3-6, 6-3. And Felix Auger-Aliassime, some people thought that he would give Thiem a run for his money, and obviously he has the full court game, he has the bags of potential, and he has the firepower, but Thiem throughout this tournament has been able to edge the big moments. He did it in his very first set of the event against Jaume Munar, where he was in a little bit of a sticky situation in that first set tiebreak after Munar came racing back when Thiem had the lead. And with Auger-Aliassime as well, he edged that tiebreak and rolled, so was able to swing at the end of those 2 sets. So I was a little bit cautious going into his match with Alex de Minaur because, you know, he'd only had to really exhibit the mental strength for the first set, and he was swinging from there. He was a lot looser, so I wondered if de Minaur's court coverage could make it closer and make him feel the moment. 6-1 first set, I don't think accurately represents how close it was. There were some close games, and de Minaur had this obvious tactic of running in, and he's done it quite a lot actually throughout the US Open, trying to get to the net. You're not really, if you were someone of Alex de Minaur's status at the moment and stature, you're probably not going to win a tremendous amount of baseline rallies against him unless you're zoning and taking the balls on the rise, as he did for a period of time in the third set, but it just wasn't sustainable. So he had to find his way into the forecourt, which he did with regularity in that first set. So he asked the questions, but Thiem ultimately had the answers. What was really interesting from Thiem here was the way he was giving de Minaur different looks on the ball. Against someone like de Minaur, it might be tempting to kind of engage in some quick, fast rallies, but Thiem was using the backhand slice a lot, and that really did test de Minaur out. It made him unsure at times of when to move in, of how to move around, and just held him back occasionally. And Thiem was able to come through 6-1, 6-2, 6-4. There was a little blip in the third set at 2 sets and a breakup. I was pretty much guilty of thinking that was it. And then de Minaur had a new lease of life, and Thiem went off the boil a little bit. A few 1-2 punches into the net, kind of over forcing the play when it had been coming so naturally before. And that's a kind of dip that Medvedev could take advantage of, because in any match, and particularly matches that are best of 5 sets, you've got to at least play the 3 sets. That's a lot of time to maintain your concentration. And as great as Thiem is, even he is going to have those little wobbles that Medvedev is going to try and make so certain that he's there to take advantage of. de Minaur almost did, but once again it was impressive from Thiem. And suddenly a sticky situation where it looked like he could lose the set. 4-all, I think he was love 30 down. Dead net cord kind of helped him. You could see the winds go out of de Minaur's sails a little bit. But the great thing about Thiem when he's got his back against the wall is he plays everything on his own terms. He doesn't take a step back. He doesn't try and extend the rallies too much. He just very much backs himself and actually goes for more. When he was up against it, he came in for the quick finishes. He injected that extra bit of power and pace into his shots. Really look to use his first and second shots. They're so important. First shot behind the serve, first shot behind the return, so important, whether you're trying to finish the point quickly or whether you're looking to find your footing in a longer rally. And I think the Thiem had that well under control. I have some concerns for him on serve. He was throwing a lot of second serves in at times, particularly actually in that first set. I think he only finished with about 50% of first serves in play. And I feel like de Minaur didn't quite take his advantage of that as much as he could have done. Someone like Medvedev reads it really well, so he knows when he needs to be standing a little bit more forwards and putting the pressure on and getting a few return winners. So if Thiem is going to put as many second serves in play, that is something that Medvedev could get on top of and penalize. And I tell you what, this is a really tough one to call. I kind of, in a way, I feel like this should almost be the final, just based on how the two of them have been playing. But same as in the women's draw where Serena and Azarenka have been competing so well, this is how it goes. You've got to play who's in front of you. For these two, it happens to be right now in the semifinals. I think, let's have a look at the head-to-head, actually. So Thiem is just a step ahead with, I believe, two wins to Medvedev's 1. This doesn't help me at all, because I thought I knew after watching the last couple of matches and just with my general instincts surrounding this event, I thought I knew which way I was going here. And then I looked at the head-to-head, and the last meeting came 2019, the summer of 2019 for me. Canada, the ATP Masters 1000 event. If you remember last season, Medvedev was in scorching form for the hard court swing in the summer, sailed into the US Open and continued that form and looked pretty killer. He pretty much was playing like he's playing now. He's picked up that form again in this part of the world. And during that wonderful run of form last year, he came up against Thiem in Canada and beat him 6-3, 6-1 in the quarterfinals. And it's hard to argue with that kind of scoreline. Looking at that scoreline, you can 100% see how he was able to get on top and how he could do so again in quick conditions here at the US. Now, I do think that Thiem's been getting a little bit more oomph on his balls. He's been really stepping up and trying to dictate a little bit more than maybe he would have done back in the day. He's just done so much with work with his game all around. But that 2019 meeting on a fast hard court in this part of the world is still pretty recent. And I see real similarities in the way Medvedev was playing then and the way Medvedev is playing now. What I would say is that at that part of the season last year, I think Thiem dropped off just a little bit. His consistency as a whole across the board over the past couple of years, I tweeted this, I think earlier today, has been second to none outside of the big three. He's nipped at their heels. He's given them close contests. He's beaten them at times. He was so close to beating Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open. So I think that was the one time where maybe he dropped off a bit, which is probably a good thing for him coming into this, given that he lost that match so comprehensively. He did get a comprehensive victory himself on clay courts last year. That was in Barcelona, 6-4, 6-love for Thiem over Medvedev on that occasion. Only previous meeting between them went the way of Thiem in St. Petersburg, Russia, 2018. Back end of the year. Interestingly, indoor hard courts. So that's always going to be a little bit quicker. And Thiem did edge that one at 6-2, 3-6, 7-6, showing his ability in the tough moments as well, again, to grit through. But at the same time, Medvedev's really reached his peak since then. So that head-to-head doesn't help me a tremendous amount with the way I was instinctively looking at this one going. Coming into it, I'm going to be really honest, when Djokovic took a step to the sidelines, I thought, okay, this has to be Dominic Thiem's Grand Slam, just because of his consistency. And there's probably a part of me that thinks he deserves to get it just because of the consistency that he's shown across the year. Now, I know tennis doesn't go like that, which is why I said it would be typically Zverev with his brilliant skills of timing to know when to peak and to get across the line here. I can very much see that happening. But I think that I've underestimated Thiem at times, even with the respect I have for him. I did write him off a little bit against Djokovic at the Australian Open, and he nearly won that match. So I think that one really caused me to kind of take a second think when it comes to Dominic Thiem away from clay courts, which we know he plays tremendously well on. So I did think, with his mentality, with the work he's done on his game, it's got to be his slam to win or lose. But then actually, in the road to where we are now, Medvedev had impressed me more, and I was kind of watching him thinking, what's it going to take for someone to take Medvedev down? So then I started thinking, what did it take last year? Because when I think of Medvedev, US Open 2019, I think of his tremendous run of form. I think of him surprising me when I thought that at some point over best of 5, he surely had to wear out. All of the tennis he'd played surely had to catch up with him. And it didn't. It didn't even in the final. But what did get him in the final was Rafael Nadal, who led by 2 sets and a break before Medvedev came back to make it competitive. And in the end, Nadal did have to change up his tactics in order to get across the line. He did that by rallying so consistently, and he was using a tactic that Thiem used tremendously well against de Minaur. Slice backhand again and again and again, just to take the rhythm away from Medvedev. Before that, he'd been going for the corners, he'd been trying to out-hit Medvedev. That wasn't working. But when he made Medvedev play, that's when he started to find openings. And it really was a fight to the finish for Nadal there. But he had the presence of mind and the repertoire of options to be able to come through that. And if you've been watching my videos recently, who have I said that Thiem has been showing tendencies of in his game? Rafael Nadal. With the way he's striking the forehand, with the way he's returning, with his intensity and his focus during the match, I see more. I mean, because they're completely different players, okay? But I see more and more of Nadal and Thiem. And just with that tactic he used against de Minaur, it reminded me that there was someone who stopped Medvedev last year, and that person was Nadal. And I'm seeing flashes of Nadal and Dominic Thiem. So my instinct coming into this, even though I found it hard to see how anyone would topple Medvedev, Thiem is the man to get it done, I think. So I'm taking Dominic Thiem in this one, and it's going to be a fight. I don't know if I'd go all the way and say 5 sets. Obviously, Medvedev was cramping, so Thiem's going to want to make him rally a little bit more anyway. And you might wonder, why was Medvedev cramping? Well, as much as he's won his matches so far in straight sets, he has had to run a lot in those matches because the key has been his consistency. So I don't think Thiem will be shying away from getting involved in a lot of long rallies. Just because of the way rhythm's gone so far for these two and momentum and being able to edge opening sets, I would almost be tempted to take Thiem in straights if I was backing him, but I just don't know if he would win the first set. I have a feeling Medvedev might get the opening set, but with Thiem's mental strength, I can see him fighting back from that deficit. I feel like I've spent a lot longer on this match than the other ones, but I feel like there's so many interesting layers and dimensions to it. But yeah, I will take Thiem, and I think that I'll take... Could be a 5-set battle this, but I'll go Thiem in 4. Dominic Thiem to reach the US Open final in 4 sets. And if my predictions are correct, it would be Thiem versus Zverev in the final, and that would for sure be an interesting clash. Yeah, what a US Open, hey? So that's my predictions. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in live. Thanks to everyone that's been posting in the chat. I'll read that back afterwards. Sometimes I get a little bit distracted when certain things come up, so I try when I'm doing the preview and predictions not to read it as we're going through so much, but I do read it back afterwards. So always interested to read your comments. If you're coming at a later date, leave a comment on the general video and let me know if you agree or disagree with the predictions and my analysis and why or why not. And I guess I'll see you next when it comes to previewing and predicting the finals. I'll do a separate video for each of them. So one for the women's final and one for the men's final. And we'll see if we can keep a little bit of success rolling. So thank you very much for tuning in. This will be live at some point when YouTube's finished processing it, which takes a while. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope I don't get these horrendously wrong. And I'll see you again next time.